Hello, everyone. We've got another Vine Origin Stories with Mr. Jason Roy joining us. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for making it out. I know we're doing this all remotely, so I appreciate you making some time. Jason's actually a very new addition, one we're super proud of. Made the decision to join the Vine Group team. So thanks for making some time to tell us your story. So just to kind of go back, you've been in this industry for quite a while. You've been in this industry for about 17 years, I think you shared.
Yeah, I just passed the 17-year mark like a month or so ago. I don't remember my exact start date, but I think it was March.
Actually, you know what? Let me ask you. 17 years ago, where does that put us? That's like in the early 2000s, I'm guessing. Well, early 2000s,
2007.
mid-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was brokering like when you started? What did that environment look like in terms of your process,
Yeah.
roughly, the types of solutions that were available? Like, how did that all? That was probably fax, I'm guessing. Is that how you're
Oh,
operating?
what their facts? No, no. It was a whole different world though. I mean, from a brokering qualifying client standpoint, that was like zero down 40-year AM days. So that was
Yes, I
like
remember.
wild, wild
Yeah.
west,
No, no money
self-employed,
down.
no problem.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's definitely changed a lot. But for me, a lot of it was still face-to-face office, uh, go to the clients, stuff like that. But I've always run virtually from day one. Um, just seemed more efficient for me to be able to do things from my office on my time, and the clients to do things from their home or office on their time. So, virtual is pretty common now. Not everyone's meeting clients as much anymore, but back when I was doing it, it was we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have all these things, so it was a little bit trickier to navigate that and to set that up. But yeah, it's a long time ago. We did have cell phones, we did have internet, but it was we were just past the fax stage, I think.
So you were doing this remote type, almost introducing remote type processes before it became mainstream, which is odd, which is interesting because it's very different. For a lot of people who are almost like just recently still adapting. I still talk to people who are like, I meet every single client, we do everything one on one, which just blows my mind in the current environment. Because it's just
Yeah,
counterintuitive to like efficiency. And that was the other question is
yeah,
you've got an engineering background, and that
right.
engineering is all about efficiencies and systems and so on. So what led you to even consider a mortgage broker career? Like, why did you even consider this? Because as an engineer, I would imagine, very different world than
Yeah,
being a salesperson, basically, which is what we are. Yeah,
right.
like at the core.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it wasn't like I don't know if anybody wakes up and says they want to be a mortgage broker
No,
and
I
that's
didn't
their
know what it
dream,
was.
but for me, definitely wasn't. Engineering, I was in project management, and I had a good job, had a great salary, but I was working out of town. When I was on a project, I was out of town, and I was in the office. But when I was out of town, I was gone for weeks at a time, and then you get a couple days off, and then you're back home, and then you're gone. But that lifestyle was fine until we started having kids. And my wife and I had our first kid, and then I would be out of town and come home. Baby's 3 months old, makes strange and cries when I get home after not seeing them for a few weeks. I was like, this can't be the life that I'm going to continue on. I could have got another engineering job. I could have switched. Um, but I really started to see I need to find a way that, and this is before remote work too. So I'm like, how do I find a job, a career that I can be at home with the kids and the family? And that was a big thing. And then coincidentally, my wife and I had been buying and selling property, moving our way up the property ladder, and using a mortgage broker. And so I was chatting with him, kind of saying like, what's this gig about? And the more he talked to me about it, it showed I was like, oh, this actually might fit with what I want to do from a lifestyle standpoint. And I enjoyed mortgages, and because we were buying and selling and moving along and understanding the process, I was then helping coaching family, friends, and stuff through their home buying journey. They were coming to me for advice. So I thought, I'm like, kind of already doing this, going to fit the lifestyle. Um, so yeah, thought let's give it a try.
So it was mainly not so much like I'm dreaming of being a broker, but it was more just a lifestyle decision in the sense that, this is one of those roles where it gives us the option to work completely remotely, like you mentioned, but I can travel. And as long as I have
Hmm.
access to a phone and internet, I can take care of work, take care of clients, and get things done. And it was that freedom as you were kind of starting the family.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I think I was kind of young and naive to it as well too. I also thought it was going to be easy.
Easy.
So that was my first mistake, because I thought it was going to be easy as well. Um, so I thought, okay, it gives me the lifestyle, gives me everything. I think it's going to be pretty easy, and I'll make a bunch of money. So
Yeah,
You know,
fair enough.
yeah.
I think that's the impression. A lot of times you work with people and they're like, no, this process was pretty easy. And at the end of it is there's a lot goes on behind the scenes. But I think just starting out, and I was going to ask you about that, what that experience was like. Starting out, it's great to have a client. It's great to have a client that you're able to show them how to put a mortgage together and explaining options and navigating that to
Mhm.
the end. But it's hard to get constant stream of clients, right? Especially when the market changes and the market is slow, or you just don't have a database or a network to start. So what was day one like for you when you
Yeah.
made the decision to go? I'm assuming a pretty decent salary as an
Mhm.
engineer before you made the move. Like, how did that happen? Day one,
Yeah.
what did it look like for you?
Yeah, I mean that the salary really was the biggest hurdle of getting started. It was like, how do I quit my full-time cushy salary gig to go to making $0,
Yeah.
and having our second child, just about to be born, and I didn't have millions of dollars sitting in the bank account to bankroll me. So that was tough, but yeah, eventually get started, and I guess that's when the reality hits. Is you're like, okay, I got my computer, I got my desk all set up, I got everything done. I'm like, okay, now what? Right? Like the phone's not going to ring. Now what do I do? And it's tough. I mean, I think it's tough for anyone not coming into the business without a database, not coming from the financial world. You really have to find every client like one at a time and find a way. So I would go to open houses and show homes and obviously talk to my friend circle, family circle. But it was difficult, for sure. Market was booming in 2007 in Alberta, so that was a big like opportunity. And then I decided that 6 months into it, we should leave the market that's doing well and we should move to a small town on Vancouver Island. Again, still thinking this was going to be easy. I hadn't quite settled in that maybe this wasn't going to be as easy as I thought. And then that's kind of when reality hit. It was like, okay, this small town's not really going to provide enough business for me. I don't know anybody in this small town. And I was already doing things remote, virtually, but this really made it need to be remote so I could still maintain business back in Alberta at that time and maintain those connections that I had started to establish. But how could I do the business, you know, 1,300 kilometers away when we didn't have Zoom and we didn't have all that stuff? So it
Mhm.
was it was a struggle. Like there's no way around it. I struggled. It was some good, some bad, but it was a struggle.
The other thing is, it's not just figuring out how to build a reputation and get clients and leads. Once you have that client, because what a lot of people don't realize is, like, technically we have access to over 80 lenders across the country. And when you work for one brand, one company, let's say one bank, you understand their policies and rules and so on. But when you have access to literally dozens, there's so many different rules. So sometimes you just don't know where to find a home for that file. And when you're part of maybe a smaller team, or you're completely new and you don't have the mentorship or resources to help guide you, it could be overwhelming, and that
Hmm.
one little lead you had could go away, and all of
Right.
a sudden you lost it to the bank who was able to get it done. So it is tough. So tell me about that, like, period of struggle, because I think anyone in the real estate world in the last year and a half, 2 years, has probably struggled as well, because the market is slower. So either they struggle because they're entering the market in a very slow time frame, or they're struggling because they've built up a book of business or an environment where they're operating at a certain expectation, and now they've seen massive drops. So they either can't meet their business needs, their lifestyle needs, and it's a struggle. Again, anyone
Yeah.
associated with real estate in Canada. So what was those first years like, and how were you able to slowly find your way out of that and into some
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
growth and
Yeah. It's
success?
funny you say about the timing because I see that cycle kind of coming around now, and I'm glad I'm through that. But I can see it for other people where it's like things had been great for a few years and kind of easy, and now it's like, oh, this is difficult. The market has shifted, so it does remind me of those beginning days for me. So I really focused at the start, like every client was going to be super important. So how did I build the systems that I could duplicate and make sure clients were having a great experience, and that experience was consistent from client to client? Because I knew I didn't have the circle, so that one client could become 3 referrals, 10 referrals, could become a repeat client. So I knew how important it was to really focus on what I was able to get and make sure I could turn it into something else, something
Hmm.
more going forward. Um, but the struggle, like it still wasn't easy. Like everything was a fight. Learning lender policies, like I had more time because I didn't have as many clients, so I could learn lender policies and read and make phone calls and figure it out. But you also have that stress of like, I need to close this deal because I have a mortgage payment to pay. And that weighs heavy on you for sure, month after month, year after year. So I
Mhm.
struggled. I struggled for like, I did okay, but I struggled for the first like 5 years. I really did struggle. I didn't really have any direct mentorship or anything like that. It was more kind of just figure it out and get up every day and keep
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
Um, and then the struggle didn't, the struggle shifted when finally I decided, okay, it's not about another sales system or mortgage product or something. I finally figured out that the secret that I've been trying to find from other successful brokers that I couldn't get the answer from was that I needed to work on me. It was me, the internal part, the personal part that needed to shift in order for me to then shift in the business. So that's where I started putting my focus, is uh, going to things and learning and shifting and
Basically
putting that effort
investing
into me.
back in yourself.
Yeah.
And so were there a couple, one or two things that you felt had the most impact in investing in yourself?
I think the biggest thing that comes out of it is the time you spend internally helps you figure out like who you are. And once I was able to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be in this business, I was able to show up as that person, knowing that that person wasn't going to be for everybody, but the
Mhm.
people that it was right for, I was going to be showing up authentically and with confidence and clarity, because I was comfortable with who I was versus I felt I was trying to be somebody else, thinking that this is what clients would want before. And I don't think that comes across. I don't think the energy comes across as authentic that way. And I think people can sense that, whether it's a desperation or whatever that they're sensing. So it really was a shift in who I am, how do I show up, and being okay with the people not being okay with me. And I don't need to work with those clients versus trying to be the
Mhm.
solution to everybody.
Yeah, I think that's important. That's actually one thing that many years ago sort of shifted some of the growth. In it's okay to say no sometimes. In saying, hey, you know what, I'd love to work with you. Here's the best advice I can give you, but I think I'm probably not the best person to take it to the
Yeah,
finish line for many reasons. Maybe that they legitimately have a better option elsewhere. Maybe you just know that this particular person is not going to be able to work under the conditions you need to. It's like, hey, you have a really tight timeline. If you don't give me all this stuff in this timeline, I can't help you. So I don't want to take that burden if you're not going
right,
to be able to work with me. So I think just saying no, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think, like you said, I think people can certainly see when you're not being authentic. And I think in a world where I'm asking clients and we're asking clients for everything about their income, their savings, basically all those private things that we don't talk as a society in the open, I'm asking for this private information. I think you have to have some faith and trust in the person and feel like they're being authentic and honest with you as well. Otherwise,
yeah,
there's no long
yeah,
term business model that's going to work there. So it makes complete sense, with taking that approach. Well, and I know that that sort of shifted your business. And what a lot of people might not know is, if you're outside the industry, is like Jason's got a very successful coaching sort of business as well, where he helps a lot of brokers on
hmm,
all different matters to help grow their businesses. And I guess a lot of that you would have taken from the stuff that you struggle with, but were
right.
able to implement in your business. So I guess fast forward now to current world. What are some contrasting things you see from 17 years ago till now in how much more some of these changes have helped your business? What are some things that you would tell yourself 17 years ago if you're starting out, if you were to name a couple?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think a lot, like, trust in the process and know that if you've laid out a plan, that the plan can be successful, but it might take a little bit more time, and to not get distracted by, oh, I tried this for a week and it didn't work, so I'm going to chase something else. I'm going to try that for a week and it didn't work. And then you end up 3 years down the road and you haven't really accomplished anything. You've had a little mini success, but never really stuck with it. And where could I have been if I would have just stuck with the one thing for the longer time period? How much quicker could I have actually found the real success? So I still think that's a big thing, is I see people jumping all over the place because they're not clear on what they want to do or why they want to do it. It's just a strategy that they saw another broker doing and that broker looks successful, so I'm going to do that. But it might not fit with the person, it might not fit with their personality. And if it doesn't, then they don't stick with it and they don't find the success. And I go, well, that didn't work. But all of the ideas can work. It's just what's going to work for you individually. Finding that, if I could have found that sooner, I think I obviously would have had success or more success sooner if I would have focused on that, I guess.
Another question is, you do have an engineering background, so generally I would imagine it'd be a little bit more analytical, but you're in a very sales environment. Aside from offering advice and solutions, and I guess to some extent we're project managing the evolution of the
Right. Yeah.
file from the original creation of the file to the various sort of moving parts with appraisals and lawyers and so on. But how have you found, like, I guess a better question is, do you think that sales, being a great salesperson, is super important to be successful in this job? Because you come from an environment where we're not a salesperson by
Yeah.
nature. You were in engineering,
Yeah.
and now you're in a world where it is still a sales, customer service type job. But do you find that is a prerequisite to have some success in this world?
I think there's two options. You're either a really good salesperson, and then you probably have some back end support that's helping you with the technical
Process.
part, the actual process. Or in like my case, I'm not a great salesperson. So I relied on, from the engineering side, the processes, the systems, the efficiencies, in order to be able to duplicate that process over and over again so that I could give that, consistent experience and make sure, clients were getting updates on time, realtors were getting updates, lawyers are getting updates. Like, you don't build a system in one night, but over time, building in and adding in those efficiencies, I think helps. Maybe I'm biased about it, but I think it actually, from a long-term standpoint, with my clients and my database, paid more dividend than having. I'm not saying sold. Being a salesperson, I'm not selling them, the wrong solution, but being a salesman in that sense of getting them in the door, getting them excited about an opportunity, is one thing. I think for me personally, having that long-term, going deep with those clients, building those relationships, now doing mortgages for their kids and stuff, happened because I was able to really connect with them and understand and empathize with them, and not just quickly work them through a process and treat them like a transaction.
And that makes sense. So you're right, because you could be an amazing salesperson and you can kind of get a file through the door and to the finish line, but depending on the advice and the approach that you take, they may not come back to you because they're like,
Right.
Jason was a little bit pushy.
Right.
It's all good. We signed the documents, but I don't think I'm going to
Right.
be going back to them. So I think
Yeah.
sometimes that's not necessarily a skill. At the end of the day, I think you just have to do what's right for the client. And if you've got a process in place to offset maybe a skill that you didn't already have, or
Yeah.
you hadn't
Yeah.
gotten to a level where you were comfortable, I think that's a great way to
Yeah.
manage
And
it.
I knew I
So
never would get to that level of feeling comfortable from a sales standpoint. So I just leaned on the strengths that I had. And for me, again, that worked better, knowing of figuring out who I was and who I wanted to show up. That worked better for me than trying to be something that I wasn't.
but that's an important point, because I think a lot of people get stuck on the things that they probably can't do really well and they don't move forward. And I think you acknowledge, like, look, maybe this isn't naturally kind of where I'm programmed, but I could do this other stuff really, really well, better than most. So let me lean on that. And it's obviously worked out really, really well.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess last question is, if someone was joining today, and given that we came out of a fairly slow period, given that I would say that the whole industry has shifted now. We're all obviously all working remotely. There's access to way more information than ever before. People are, researching online and that sort of thing, and it's very competitive. What's one bit of info that you'd be telling anyone starting in our world, as a takeaway before we sign
Yeah.
off?
I think, like you said, people are searching online. Your clients or potential clients are searching online. They have more information than they had in the past, which is a positive, but also a negative, because they're coming to you with a higher understanding of the mortgage process. So it can't just be about, I can get this done efficiently for you. It really, again, back to, like, who are you? Who do you want to connect with? Who's your ideal client going to be? And how can you really focus on that group of people, that type of person, so that you can show up consistently and deliver what that person needs to deliver or needs to receive. Because there's an option for everybody out there. You're not going to be that option for everybody, but how can I be the option for this group of people, and how can I do a really good job at being that person, whether it's investors, first time home buyers, whatever it is. How can I show up and be that right person for that group of people?
Cool. So just be yourself.
Yeah, basically, at the end of the day,
Be yourself.
that's a simple thing. Be yourself, but it's harder to do that when you don't have the confidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, be yourself. That's people. Those people, that group of people want to work with someone that they see as true and honest and connects with their lifestyle as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big one. Just be yourself, be honest with yourself, and I think that comes across very clearly in the conversation. So hey, man, Jason, thanks for making some time to chat.
Yeah, no problem.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for all the insight, and thanks for being part of Vine Group. We're very fortunate and honored to have you, man. And we look forward to doing a lot more, so that 5-10 years from now, we can maybe revisit some of these conversations and see
Yeah, that
kind
would
of
be
what the
interesting.
evolution of
Yeah,
Jason
yeah,
is,
yeah.
and see where we're at in the future. So maybe it
The
might be a lot
AI
of
version. Yeah,
AI or some
yeah,
virtual
yeah,
classes
yeah,
and things like that. So thanks for your
yeah.
time again, man. I appreciate it.
All right, cool. Talk soon.